Well, g'day and welcome to another Carnage House production. It is another episode of the Young Australian Entrepreneur Series. We have a huge show coming up today. We've got with us via Skype or via web link. Obviously, it's a little bit more difficult to talk to people in person during this period, but what we've done is we set up a video link to overcome this. We have the founder of YSQUARE Education, with more than 15,000 hours of actual clinical diagnosis and work experience in the area of psychiatry and clinical psychiatry, as well as being a healer, educator, and just general self-help guru. We have Ying Yang. Ying, how are you?
Great, thanks.
Fantastic. Good to see you. Good to hear from you. The aim of this series, as people would have known if they saw the first episode with Brian Jordan, is to figure out kind of the process and how people have started businesses in Australia, how they're going, particularly catching up with people right now during this period, how their business has been affected, what are the challenges that they're facing, as well as kind of what are the general challenges people face in starting a business in Australia anyway. So I thought we would start today's session with asking you, what is your business? What does it do? And how did you start?
Oh, that's a big question. I think, my business, they didn't just build from a business plan. My business was actually built on a dream and on the people's needs and my needs also as well. And also built on a passion, a dream that to be able to connect with other people and to serve other people. So I think my business was definitely built on a dream and a passion rather than a business plan. So when it comes down to the business, we help people, overcome their stress, overcome their shame and guilt, negative emotions, and then to have a more clarity, more certainty, more confidence with their lives. Yeah.
So you've had more than definitely several thousand clients. Specifically, what do you actually do with your clients in terms of what do they come in needing help with, and then what do you provide?
That's a great question. I started my background when I came to Australia. My first degree was nursing, so I did my academic background was nursing. But then I found my passion more in mental health, psychiatric clinician. So I did a postgraduate in psychiatry, and then I still found that was a gap. So after I studied psychiatry work as a psychiatric clinician for nearly a decade, I also did a second degree with psychology. And not because other people need it or I have to do a qualification to prove, I guess what I desperately needed myself.
Yeah.
And so there was a turning point in my business or in my personal life. One of my best friend, she was a clinical psychologist and she was diagnosed with depression.
Yeah.
There was a gap between Western psychology and the people still holding on that stress, holding on that baggages. So I started looking different healing modalities, including Eastern philosophies and wisdoms. That's how we actually start a business to programs that help people to live a life with more clarity, certainty, and confidence. Okay. Would that make your question?
Yeah, absolutely. So to kind of sum it up, it would be you had extensive work experience in the area and then in that field of study prior, and then seeing that there were kind of gaps in the ways in which you would remedy particular issues, you started your own business.
Yeah, I do believe that, the definition of entrepreneur is you have a passion wanting to serve other people, and there is also a needs. So you want to maximize the spiritual fulfillments, but you also want to maximize the material fulfillments.
Sure.
So that's how people founding, or that's how people originally start their business.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how did you find the first couple or the first period of setting up your business? Did you find that people wanted to come to you straight away, or did you find that it was difficult to get clients on board initially, or how did you find the process at the start of setting up the business?
I think at the start it was quite daunting because there was certainly uncertainty and unknown. But I tell you a secret in whether to start your business or fulfill your dream. At any stage of your business, you are a startup. At any stage, it doesn't matter how big or how small, you always feel like a startup.
Right.
because your business always adapting to a changing environment. So it doesn't matter, like I started business 5 years ago or 10 years ago until now, especially during the COVID-19 outbreaks, most businesses, they will feel like a startup again, because whatever was working is not working. So they have to try these new things and to get things going again. So when people think a startup is only for startup, actually it's not true.
Okay, so that's a little bit of business development advice there that people can take home and study, and that's part of the mindset, I guess. Well, that's great advice. Thank you for that. Have you found so far, particularly, that people in general are more stressed at the moment compared to when you started, or have you found that kind of people are operating at the same level of stress and mental confusion now compared to where you started?
You know, that's a good question. All your questions really sharp. You didn't told me before that. I would say your problems is only like the size of you and the size of problems. The bigger you grow, the bigger problems you have.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter the size of the challenges or problems you have. It's more the challenges of the size of you, like how capable you are to handle that problems. You know, the problems I had 5 years ago, they might be not problem anymore because I overcome that.
Yeah.
And problems I involved right now. So I believe, you know, your challenges, your problems will always be there, but it's more how you develop your capacity and the strengths that are to overcome that. It's like we're going to the gym, you know, we had like a 5 kilos weights. The beginning I found it was a struggle. Now I can do 10 kilos and 15 kilos. So the more adaptive you are, the more flexible you are, I believe, like the more you be adaptable in anything you do.
Sure. Sure. Well, I mean, just touching on that, that's definitely good advice. People at home might be saying, well, what are some of the practical things and everyday things that I can do to improve my mental clarity or state of mental being, particularly in a time like this where a lot of people aren't seeing their friends, they're not seeing their family, they're kind of stuck at home. They might be finding it more difficult to exercise, go do things or perform. Particularly, I think it's part of the routine. Like people are having their routines broken in a way that seems like it's outside of their control. There's nothing they can do about it, and it's for a period of time which may be indefinite. So what would you say some things that people can do to improve the actual practical things that they can do to improve kind of their state of mental health?
Okay, I like that. I'll probably give you simple, very simple 3 tips.
Yeah.
First one is around acceptance, like how to accepting whatever that is happening. The second one would be around a fear, anxiety, or love.
Mm-hmm.
The third one is about how to accepting the chaos and how to see the balance, the equilibriums between that. So the first one, I believe, it's very hard for people to accepting the reality, like, you know, what's going on. And if I wake up, you know, I hear opinions from immunologists, from psychologists, from politicians, from scientists, from doctors, from my families. And there will be so many voices that are trying to tell you, like, you know, so it's kind of the bombarded by all this kind of information. So I was sharing on Facebook, I said, who have a sore throat after you're watching the news?
Yeah, of course. That's a good point. That's a good point. Often you would think that there might be some kind of translation from the information you hear to physical symptoms.
And the worst news I've ever heard, which is, you know, from I wouldn't mention the name of the politician, and she said it was, if you don't have the virus, please act like you do. It's kind of you fake it until you make it. It's kind of scary, that kind of mentality. So I do believe that is the first tips I give to people is accepting it, because if you're looking at the planets, our stars, you know, there's so many chaotic energies going through our planets. What's as above, so below. What's within, so without. What's as the body, so with the soul. So I do believe whatever happens out there, like in the bigger scale, it's also manifesting and projected into our reality on the earth. Whether we wanted to blame the bats, blame Chinese, blame US, in the end, this is all just all instruments. for the universe to play orchestrating a bigger scale what's actually happening in the humanity. So I do believe like accepting it doesn't mean we sit on the couch, watch TV. Accepting it is to embrace the reality and focus on the solution rather than just focus on the problem.
Would you say that that's kind of like an Eastern philosophy kind of way of looking at it? Would you say that's the way in which kind of Eastern philosophy forms a backbone of your business? Is that, for example, a lot of Western people may not regard the way kind of the universe is operating as an actual impact on their lives? Would you say that's kind of like an Eastern philosophical element to your business?
I do believe, so that's Alex, that's such an amazing question. So the first Eastern philosophy, we teach impermanence. That means the pain is not forever, but the pleasure is not forever. So nothing will be like, one thing never change is change. We call it impermanence. That's one thing. The second things I wanted to touch around Eastern philosophy is in Eastern philosophy, there is 3 elements. So the first element is between the relationship between you and yourself. So that's Buddhism. Buddhism teaching the relationship between you and yourself. So many people, they have shame, guilt, stress because it's not because they can't forgive other people, it's because they can't forgive themselves. So the Buddhism teaching alignments between your thoughts, ideas, your actions, that's within yourself. The second element in Eastern philosophy, we're teaching the relationship between you and the people around you. So that's Confucianism. Confucianism teaching understand human nature, understand how leadership, understand how to build a community, how to build a team, how to making sustainable long-term relationship, whether it's private, personal relationship or professional relationship. And the last one is actually touching on your question is around the relationship we call the Taoism. So Taoism teaching the relationship between you and the nature. That's why what's happened above, what's below, as above, so below. So what's happening in the stars, in the galaxy, or with the planets, actually the chaos actually manifesting on our planet Earth, if you're looking at the big picture.
No, I think that's really interesting and it's definitely helpful. I mean, if you actually look throughout history, this is kind of an interesting side point. The points at which you see the worst economic depressions and the worst kind of states of war, like there were periods where the disease ran rampant, like the Black Plague, all of that type of stuff, you actually see that the attendance at church, for example, in Western countries goes way up. And you also see people become way more religious. So a lot of the time that the way in which people deal with economic crises or things going against them in real life is to look kind of towards the heavens or the stars and to kind of find comfort and that. So, I mean, a lot of people, for example, would not be familiar with the idea that Eastern philosophy kind of has quite a few similarities in terms of the way that people deal with things compared to in the same way that Christianity does, for example. So I think it's interesting because there are actually quite a few similarities and it is definitely, I think a lot of people find comfort in the idea that there is something out there potentially that may be looking after them in some way. So that's interesting that your business actually touches on that. And I'm sure that that's probably why you would find success in Australia, because there are similarities between kind of the Judeo-Christian background to Australia compared to kind of the more the Eastern philosophies underpinning China. But that's actually quite interesting. And I think the people at home would be appreciative of that, 100%.
And you touch on the Christianity is actually the teaching the relationship between you and the love. So there's the 4 things basically in 4 different spiritualities is around the relationship between you and yourself, you with people around you, you with nature, and the Christianity is teaching the relationship between you and the love.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Now, I think I interrupted you, unfortunately, on your second tip. Did you have your third and final tip, how to get through this unsettling period for a lot of people?
I think the second tip or the third tip, I can put them together, is around fear, because when this kind of massive change happens and the people become fearful. So my advice, very practical advice, I get people to really have a deep reflection what exactly you fear about. Because whatever you fear in Eastern philosophy is a kind of attachment. That attachment will make you suffer. So people fear about losing money, or people fear about losing business, and people have a fear about death. There's all sorts of fear because we have this attachment. And when we have the bigger the attachment, the bigger the fear. The bigger the fear, the bigger the anxiety. And the more anxiety you have, is less flexible, less adaptive to the changing environment, and the people will have symptoms of high stress. But when you have high stress, you have a very low immunity, and then people more likely to be attacked when people have a low immunity. So level of fear, getting clarity on what you really attached, what are you scared about, and why you scared of. Is that really belong to you? Because I believe that we come here with nothing, we leave with nothing. So when you have entitlement to something, certainly your possession or belong to you, they drag you down and they really kill your immunity. That's my advice around the love and the fear attachment.
Yeah. One question I did actually want to ask you was, do you find a lot of businesses now, particularly in HR departments, invest in their employees' mental health? They're looking for ways in which to improve the productivity of their employees by improving kind of their state of mental being. I think businesses are becoming more and more conscious of trying to ensure that their employees are in the right headspace. Do you find that your clients are more businesses or more individuals seeking their own mental clarity?
Majority of my clients are individual people that are seeking their own in clarity. So majority of my clients was actually entrepreneurs, that are people looking for to manifesting, have a dream or have a vision. So I normally take them to three process. The first process is around the healing, because when people have a mental baggage or have certain things that are holding them back, they're not even aware of that. They don't have a clarity around the future. So if you don't clean the garden, it's very hard to build something on the garden.
Yeah.
So the second phase of the coaching or the programs is around the discovery, to discover your strengths, your weakness, understand yourself deeply, what something that you need to do more, what you need to do less.
Yeah.
How do you leverage? How do you collaborate? How do you fly solo? And the third steps is around the manifesting. So there's many ways that you can manifest in your vision and create alignments between, your thoughts, your feelings, your action, your vision, create alignments. That's also about Eastern philosophy that help you get there.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's definitely really, really helpful. And I think, are you considering reaching out to more businesses rather than just entrepreneurs at this point to kind of grow your business?
Previously, we did a business coaching around the communication, around the sales. So that's more like a communication behavior, understand the client's buying behaviors. I did pretty much quite many different projects with the corporates around communication skills, behavior, like that. In terms of wellness, I think a majority of my clients are individuals and entrepreneurs at this stage. In the future, we might go into the corporate, but when you go into the corporate, it's very important to understand the leaders' leadership skills and to understand what's the CEO's leadership styles and how he manages mental state. Because if the CEOs manage his mental state really well, the team members are more likely to be more adaptive because he's setting up a good culture.
Yeah, definitely.
But if some of the CEOs, they don't manage really well, they just, pay money for their corporate team to manage, I don't think that would work well. And since we are in the transition periods, you will understand there's so many large corporates will not existing anymore.
Yeah, that's possible.
Because now it's individual personal branding, individuality that you can see is merging. Small business like let's say business like Uber, a Dropbox, or like a small very Airbnb. They don't need many people, but their turnover is 10 times more than Walmart's.
Right.
Large organizations. So during the transition, especially the special time, you see so many large business will not existing anymore. a large corporates was not existing anymore, and you will see so many individualities, influencers, small business that will actually do as well as large business in terms of numbers.
Yeah, yeah. I think there definitely will be a culling as a consequence of COVID-19.
Yeah.
How has COVID-19 in particular impacted your business? Are you finding that obviously you do a lot of workshops and you work face to face with a lot of people? Obviously that's not as really not possible anymore. I mean, we're obviously doing this interview online rather than face to face. How are you coping, and how's your business changing as a consequence of COVID-19?
I think a majority of the human being, including myself, people change based on desperation, not a change based on inspiration. If I tell you, hey, you should grow your business online, people will be like, yeah. But then because COVID-19, we get forced to grow online. And then I feel like it's much better, it comes out you can connecting with people not controlled by your geography. You can control people. So I'm going to do a webinar after this with a lady from South Africa.
Yeah.
So I find it's quite liberating, and I can operate and get everything done without leaving my house.
Yeah.
I think another way, but I do still believe that a face-to-face contact of people will be appreciated even more. And it was interesting. My auntie called me from China yesterday, and I said, how is the situation in China? Is particularly in my city where I come from, Dalian. She said it was a 0 case now.
Wow. I have heard that. I mean, obviously, a lot of people are distrustful of the Chinese government and Chinese media, but I have heard overall that there has been massive suppression in cases, as well as I understand that in Wuhan, the factories are starting back up. I got a message on WeChat today from the MMA gym I used to go to in Shanghai, saying that they're getting ready to start back up shortly as well. That was their update. So obviously things are moving quickly in China. In terms of whether to trust the information, but it's definitely looks like it's moving forward.
Well, what she told me was half the story. She told me, well, it's 0 diagnosed in her city, but still treated like everybody has a virus. They staring each other on the street with masks when they go to their grocery shopping. They said the world will never be the same again because people just wearing masks. I bought masks for Australian bushfire. Now I'm wearing it for COVID-19. So
you're getting 2 uses out of it.
Yeah, I had a prediction. Well, I was listening the prediction from one of the Chinese feng shui master, whether it's true or not. They said it's gonna have 4 outbreaks this year. So I do believe that would be interesting, but we do need to be prepared. And there's so many conspiracy theories out there, which I don't think we should share today. Maybe we'll share in another session about the conspiracy sessions around.
We love conspiracy theories on the Carnage House. That's one.
I love it too.
Yeah. A lot of it conspiracy theories about China that go around. A lot of fake news, in my opinion, anyway. What do you like? A lot of our listeners are kind of young people. They're people who are looking to start their own business, or kind of in the process of starting their own business, or are just interested in kind of the idea of it in general. What would be your advice from a mental health perspective, or what are some practical things that they can do to better kind of future-proof their own mental health, as well as kind of get themselves in the mindset required to run and operate a successful business?
Wow, that's a big question. I think I feel like now this is not a young generation anymore. Be honest with you, I feel it's a new species, because my daughter is nearly 10, and I don't think when I was 10, I was catching cockroach in the kitchen. But when she's 10, knows all the YouTube channels, she knows all the Instagram, the way she talks, she dress. Is new generation, is new species. I do believe that the new generation is not the generation that I was before. Even I look young, But I do believe what you guys gonna do is definitely different from we are, because you guys more adaptive and embrace technology. And also I do, like, as you know, that personally I have a passion for TikTok. I believe people on TikTok very innovative, very creative, very spontaneous. So I do believe, and there is many ways to make money. As I touch on education, my business is called YSQUARE Education. I believe education is not accumulate of a qualification. I believe real education is a process of transformation. Because when you transform, whether you measure yourself by your success, your income, your fulfillments, I do believe that. I don't believe traditional education. I believe traditional education is designed for industry age. But
Right.
we are already past the industry age. We are already past the informational age. We are moving into the fourth age, which is consciousness age. So just if young people, they have ideas, wanted to grow a business, don't follow your parents. Follow your voice. Because your parents, like I never listen to my parents, to be honest with you.
I think the
Like,
line between being constructive and entrepreneurial there and just being disobedient might be quite thin. I think just there might be a lot of parents who would say that's a bit ridiculous.
well, my parents, I'm glad that they didn't agree with me, but they respect my choice, and they said whatever the consequence, and you have to carry the consequence if you want to take action. So that was a negotiation with my parents. Left China when I was 19, because they believe I should marry someone and have a baby. And I said I have a dream. I wanted to go somewhere else, have a look around.
Yeah.
So I have to stand up and to convincing my parents. So, and also their life evidence that to demonstrate that I wanted to be more successful than them. So I feel like for young people, you can create a business that is based on your talents, not based on your qualifications.
Yeah.
If you have talents to be entrepreneur, digital marketer, wanted to be Spotify, apps development, WeChat, WhatsApp, or like all sorts of ways that the universe is not constrained by qualifications, job interviews. There is many other ways you can create your dream, not constrained by the traditional social society, as long as it's legal.
Yes.
Not
Important
as
caveat.
as long
Important
as
caveat.
it's legal, that you're allowed to I don't know how to be successful and follow your own dream, I guess.
Well, that's fantastic, and I think that is definitely some kind of advice that young people might resonate particularly with. I know a lot of young people are probably struggling at this point.
What do you I'm young too. I'm not old.
Yeah, age is just a number, as they say. 100%. Well, is there any kind of final messages or anything you would like to leave the audience with to kind of wrap things up? What's the best way to reach you, to see your business / participate in your business? Basically, how to plug. If you have a plug you would like to provide, then this would be the time, I think.
Okay, great. Thanks, Alex. I think, there are many ways you can reach me. I'm on LinkedIn and on Facebook. I'm sure, like Alex, you can tag the link to
Of course,
find
absolutely.
me. Also, thanks. And also we're running like regular webinars helping people shift from stressed to blessed every Wednesday evening around the 7:30 to 8:30. And if you are at home, definitely tuning in. Love to connect with all of you guys from all over the world. And I'm looking forward to have a more, YouTube sessions with Alex. And I think it's very inspiring, and you're doing something like a great to providing a platform that to connecting people with audience. That's wonderful.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's nice to get some positive feedback. We get a lot of negative feedback on the Carnage House, so that's a nice change of pace. I appreciate that, Ying. I appreciate you coming on. All the best in this time of uncertainty and pressure. Thank you so much for coming on. There's the lights. We'll make sure that we've got all the links for all your various your businesses and how to contact you in the description as well. Thank you so much for coming on. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.